Hey, it's me, Bobbert 33, and welcome to the final part of my Sakura song review. Now, chapter 7 is pretty short, let's get onto it. Now, Central is now becoming an official captain in training. Pretty much in chapter 7, not much happened, so I go skip through most of it because it's pretty much filler. Now, every night, Shincho is beginning nightmares of this shadowy figure. He pretty much said the same thing. Pretty much human life is maybe 50 years. Yada yada yada, and well, you pretty much can tell who this guy's going to be. Now, during this time, all the ladies are getting ready for their big Christmas Eve party, and pretty much Sunnyside gave all the members the day off before the day of the party. Now, on your day off, you can be able to go on a date with one of the girls. Firstly, you get a visit from the girl who has the highest friendship level with, and my predator is Gemini Sunrise. But you can also change it during this chapter. While choosing which girl you want to go out with, you also need to find a Christmas present for the Christmas party. Now, the three locations you can pick from is Fifth Avenue, Romano, and Maggie's Market. I suggest that you pick all three of them, and they will play an important role later on in the game. Now, after you had your date with one of the girls, yeah, I'm not going to show any of that because A, it's too much footage to show. There's all six scores to choose from, and B, it's something you need to experience for yourself. But anyways, now it's time for the Christmas parade. Now the parade itself is pretty disappointing. For one thing, it's just nothing but picture and the lips moving. It wouldn't be too bad, I wouldn't complain too much about it if the voice acting was in sync with the lip movements, but it's not. And I also would give it a pass if you were able to skip this part, but you can't. There's no skipping this part. Granted, it's not too long, but it's pretty boring. It would have been much better if they made it one of those cinematic cutscenes, like the earliest part of the game. After that boring play, we get on to the Christmas party, and those three gifts that you might or might not got. Well, those gifts always goes to the person that you had a date with. So in this case, Germany gets the ham. It can also work for Rosita. The keychain works for Diana, Subaru, and Ratchet, and the cat statue works for Karen. Give them the right gift, and they increase your trust level with them. Meanwhile, Wamanu got the demon sword from the museum and is summoning his master. Now, you remember in chapter 6 when I briefly talked about Gemini letting Wamanu go and not killing him? Well, this is kind of what I'm talking about. Pretty much everybody who played this game say it's Gemini's fault that all this happened, all the destruction that you're about to see here. Because if Gemini would have killed Wamanu, none of this would have happened. And well, even though I get the lesson and about how you shouldn't kill for revenge, yeah, it is technically Gemini Sunrise's fault. Now it's time for the first battle, but before we get to that, Commander Sanisai talked about Ursusi Castle, which was Mission Il Mignon. Made a couple of references to the previous Sakura War games or Sakura Tyson over in Japan. And most importantly, he talks about the Five-Ring Madara. It's pretty much some magical ritual thing that can only be performed by the Five-Ring Warriors, aka the five lady who has the Five-Ring Warriors mark. Now the first battle is with Wamu for one last time. This time is completely different. You see, instead of attacking the robots, you must attack the 6 crane that's holding the robot up. I mean 8, sorry. Anyways, you must attack the 8 crane that's holding it up so it can fall into the lava pit. But the catch is, not only can you not attack the robot, but it can attack you, but you also have to beware the quicksand. Each round, the quicksand draws everybody except for the one that is on solid rock. Now, if one of your team members falls to that lava, it's game over. My strategy is have three members of each side go around and destroy pretty much all the robots in Crane. Mostly focus on the Crane, but it'd be great if you could take out most of the robots as well. They can be a pain sometimes, but again, they're not the most important thing to be aware of. Now, once you destroy the 8 Crane, then the boss battle will end. After defeating that robot for one last time, Shincho and the Star Division finally found Nobunaga. They performed the firing Madara, but it didn't work. They tried facing him head on, but he was just simply too powerful. Shincho managed to get all the Star Division members out of the castle, but Ramu hang on to Shincho. In this cutscene, we finally realize what kind of person Nobunaga is. Not only is he willing to destroy everybody who opposes him, he's willing to kill anybody who, even on his side, just so he can destroy his opponent. What's odd about this is that instead of Ramu being angry or felt betrayed, he's actually felt honored that he was able to serve Nobunaga despite killing him without any reason, pretty much. I wish the story between Nobunaga and Ramu was more developed. See what kind of person Ramu was before he met Nobunaga, and unfortunately, this also caused Chinchiro to die. Now you know why it's called Sakura Wars So Long, My Love. Okay, he's still alive. So meanwhile, this member of the Star Division watches Shinjo go to surgery. Suddenly, an attack on New York happens, and they need to go without Shinjo. Meanwhile, while Shinjo is out unconscious, he has a strange dream. Shinjo has a flashback of the Five Ring Warriors from 100 years later finding your Nobunaga. The Five Ring Warriors used the Five Ring Madara, and Shinjo figured out why it didn't work the first time. Not only did he find out that there are 6 members of the Five Ring Warriors, but one of them needs to be sacrificed in order for the Five Ring Madara to work. Shinjo told Commander Sunnyside about this, and it's revealed that Shinjo is the 6th member of the Five Ring Warrior. The mark appeared right after Nobunaga hit him with an arrow. Now Shinjo said that even though the Madara is only worked to sacrifice somebody, he doesn't want to sacrifice anybody and told Sunnyside not to mention it to the other members of the Star Division. Before going to the second and final battle of the chapter, Shinjiro paid a visit around New York after the destruction of Nobunaga. Now I'm not going to reveal too much about this part because it's something you need to experience. It's just, all I can tell you is pretty much the member helping out the citizens. Now it may not sound important or exciting, but it is one of my favorite parts of the game, and it's something you need to experience because only I can properly explain it to justify it. Now before beginning the battle, you must pick a partner. You get 3 choices, which is the 3 strongest. I went with Germany, of course, and well, there's a reason why Commander Sunnyside came up with this plan is because so Shinjo can pick somebody to sacrifice without actually knowing about it. Shinjo find out right away, and of course he's not happy about it. At the stage, Germany, or whoever you pick, will try to convince Shinjo that it's okay that she gets sacrificed in order to defeat Nobunaga and save New York, and Shinjo must convince the person you choose not to die. After convincing the person that you choose not to sacrifice herself, again, not going to tell you how it happens, you gotta experience for yourself. Now after you convince her not to kill herself, pretty much every member of the Star Division got together and agreed nobody gets sacrificed. After Shincho confronted Sunnyside, Sunnyside said that it was our test to see if he has what it takes to be the captain of the Star Division, and he passed. I'm not gonna lie to you, the first and pretty much every time I see this part, I think that was kind of messed up what Sunnyside did. I mean, there is a reason for it, but still, that's pretty messed up. Okay, now it's time for the final battle of Chapter 7. Now, Chapter 7's final battle is kind of similar to Chapter 6's first battle, but instead of rescuing your teammates, you're protecting your leader, and instead of going on top of the building to rescue your teammates, you need to destroy these 4 energy regenerators that regenerates enemies. Destroy all 4 of them and the battle is over. It's pretty easy. Now the main enemies you need to be careful about is the one carrying bombs that is attacking the leader. If you get too close to them, they do massive damage to you, but they're easily avoidable and easy to take down. What I recommend is have at least 2 or 3 guarding the leader, particularly ones that can attack multiple robots at once. Have 1 in the middle to do joint attacks, and the rest going up on the buildings destroying those generators. It's pretty easy. I say it's easier than Chapter 5 final boss, but a bit harder than Chapter 6 final boss. So, slightly disappointed, but it was still a fun part of the game. At the end of the battle, the crew celebrated, but not very long. Nobunaga has other plans. He summoned pretty much a giant meteor. It's called a 6-7, but it kind of reminds me of the Majora Mask giant moon face, but more demonic. Now, Chapter 7 as a whole, pretty much it feels like a filler episode, at least the first half. The second half pretty much have you preparing for the final chapter. As for the battles, I really did the first battle, which is pretty much like the 5th and 6th chapters, probably the best part. The second battle, again, kind of disappointing, but I wasn't really expecting a whole lot. So anyways, let's get on to the final chapter, Chapter 8. Okay, now it's time for Chapter 8, and if you're wondering that there's not many battles within this game, well, Chapter 8 really makes up with it with about 5 battles. Now the first one is destroying these bombs and avoiding the minor enemies, while protecting the 2 engines on the side and the main valve on the top of the ship. Now you may have noticed that every time I talk about these battles, I always recommend avoiding these enemies while just focusing on this one part of the enemy. Where in this case, you can't afford to make any mistake. You can't ignore anybody. I mean, first you gotta be careful for these bombs that destroy the engine. If both engines are destroyed, the game's over. And you gotta protect the main valve that is on the ship. If that gets destroyed, even with the 2 remaining ships or engines, you lose. And also, those minor enemies that I tell you that you can ignore throughout the first 7 chapters of the game, you can't really ignore them. So I recommend doing joint attacks, but also attacking the bombs, which are the biggest threat in this game. This is perhaps the hardest battle in this game. The first time I played this, I lost 5 times before I ever beat it. Now you're wondering, there's 2 engines, you can afford to use 1, right? Well, yes, but I wouldn't even recommend that either, because the longer you keep those 2 engines out, the faster this battle will end. And again, that's easier said than done. This is perhaps one of my favorite moments of this game, even though it is pretty hard and difficult. I don't feel like it's cheap. It's fair, and if I use the battle, I feel like it's my fault and not the game's. Of course, those enemies and bombs are going to respawn in each round, and they respawn a whole lot of them, so make sure you protect all your teammates because you're going to need them all. Now, the objective of this game is not only to protect the ship, but help get the ship to 7,000 feet of altitude. Now, each round you complete, you gain at least 1,000 feet of altitude, with the exception of the last one. If you keep both engine working, you'll be able to advance 2,000 feet of altitude, making it a bit easier. But again, that's easier said than done. I barely beat this part when recording this, but I managed to keep both engines alive. After protecting the ship, the Ahab, Shinjiro, with a little help from Sunnyside, was able to re-enter a sushi castle to take on Nobunaga. Not only you get extra battles in this chapter, you also get a lot of pretty great cutscenes in my opinion. I really love the cutscenes in the game. They're always great, and even though it doesn't show the full potential of the Wii, granted, this was a PlayStation 2 only game back in Japan, and it's a direct port of it, it still looked pretty marvelous to me. Now, the second battle is a cakewalk, especially compared to the first one. In this part, you travel through a maze, and you can either destroy the walls or just go around it like normal. What I recommend you doing is go around it like normal, while you let Subaru and Jiminy, who has the ability to go through and jump over walls, for the shortcuts. Now, the objective to this part is to destroy this huge crossbow thing and get to the next part of the castle. Now, the minor enemies you can pretty much ignore, but I recommend you also destroying the huge cannon that does massive damage. Use joint attack because for whatever reason it does a whole lot of damage, and I'm talking about near 1,000 damage. I have no idea why. Even when I do a joint attack on the normal regular enemies, I barely get 400 damage, but for the cannons, it always take 999, so take advantage of that. This battle is not too bad, but the one redeemable quality about this battle is the music that goes with it. Now, granted, you hear this music in, I think, Chapter 6 in the first battle, but it's still an awesome music. I really love the soundtrack, and I really wish I could play some of it without YouTube putting up a copyright notice on it. But man, if you ever get a chance to listen to some of the soundtrack, please listen to it. After defeating the second battle, the Star Division finally caught up with Nobunaga. When Nobunaga asks why the Star Division don't just simply give up, Shinjiro replied because he and his friends are unstoppable. His friends got a so powerful bond that their friendship is almost like magic. So Nobunaga, instead of cowering in fear, decided to take Shinjiro's strength and make it his weakness by eliminating them one by one. Now you get to see what kind of main antagonist Nobunaga is. Not only is he willing to destroy his enemies or allies physically, but emotionally as well. This leads to our next sort of battle, where all the Star Division members fought their dark counterpart. The reason why I say sort of battle because this battle is pretty much easy. You just pretty much attack them and they go down easily. Sometimes you can even take them down before they even make an attack themselves. But the only thing worth noting is that pretty much all the counterpart is the past self from the previous chapter, and pretty much destroy them. Whereas how much they change throughout the years with Shinjiro. After defeating all your dark counterpart with all 5 girls of the starter vision, the gang all meets up with Shinjiro again, but they found that Shinjiro is being possessed by Nobunaga. At first, you go into this battle where you fight against Dark Shinjiro, but shortly after you enter another cutscene where Shinjiro is able to get control back with his body thanks to all the members giving him their support. And now it enters to another battle where Shinjiro must fight Dark Shinjiro and the army. The objective of this battle is that you need to destroy all the enemies including Dark Shinjiro. I recommend going after the little shrimp-like enemies first. I'm guessing that they've ever got hungry at this point. Mostly because those shrimp-like enemies can control your teammates, making it a bit difficult for you to defeat the battle. They can control your teammates and attack you and your other teammates. Then destroy the hands and finally Dark Shinjiro. This battle is, I guess, a bit tricky if you're not sure what you're expecting, but it's not really a difficult battle. Mostly, just make sure that none of your teammates get possessed by those shrimp creatures, and try to destroy Dark Shinjiro with a 14, and you shouldn't have any problem. After winning that battle, you then face on to the final boss of the game, Nobunaga, and his giant robot. And when I say giant robot, I mean giant. Way bigger than the other robots in the previous chapter. How big? Well, you know the ability Aero move where you can send one member to another place? Well, this boss alone has 3 locations, and it's all from that one giant robot. That's how big it is. Now this boss is no cakewalk either. In fact, when I recorded this, I died once because I was being careless. Now the strategy I really recommend is destroying the 6 horns first, because destroying each horn will decrease the barrier on Nobunaga and makes you do more damage in Nobunaga's weak spot. Now granted, you don't have to destroy all 6, but I do recommend attacking those first, making the battle easier, but even though it makes it easier, still have a lot to look out for. There's also the arms of Nobunaga. There's 6 of them. Now to be fair, they're not the worst part, and you can probably avoid some of it, but the problem with that is they can also do some massive damage. So I recommend destroying at least 3 of the 6 arms, or at least a majority of it. And also, there's also a huge tail at the bottom of Nobunaga that also does some great attacks, and you need to be pretty much at the feet of Nobunaga to even do some damage to it, and even that is hard to get a proper aim for it. But once you destroy all those, which is again easier said than done, then attack Nobunaga Respark in the head, and you should be able to beat this battle, which in good time, I guess. It's definitely not an easy battle. Nobunaga is a very tough boss to beat. After defeating that giant robot, Nobunaga is not done yet, as you need to defeat him one last time. Now before I go on to the true final battle, you're probably wondering, how many safe spots do I have to go? Do I get? Do I have to restart the whole thing if I use? And no, after you defeat every battle, you get a chance to save, so you don't have to restart from the very beginning. Now, the true final battle is against Nobunaga's demon side. Now, this part takes place on the huge comet itself, aka the 6th, 7th, and, well, as it's not the most difficult battle, but it is still pretty challenging, especially considering you're fighting one monster throughout this whole thing. Although this isn't the toughest battle you're going to face in this game, you still can't be too careless about it, despite being one enemy on the field. For once, his attack is not only very powerful, but has an impressive range. It can attack very wide and far distance as well. And I'm not talking about numerous attacks, I'm just talking about this one attack alone. His other attack is summoning meteors from space and destroying the platform as well. Now, even though the battlefield does get shorter with each meteor that hits the ground, I never really find this too big of an issue. For once, I still find plenty of room to move around and attack Nobunaga, so it either means that as long as you keep attacking, you should be able to beat this battle no problem. But still, I still advise you to take caution with this because it does shorten the battlefield, and it may be an issue if you're not very cautious about it. Now, pretty much the only strategy is to gang up on the main antagonist and do pretty much super attacks and joint attacks if possible, and keep maybe a couple members as healers. But for the most part, it shouldn't be any trouble. Just take your time, be careful, and you should be able to defeat this final boss with no problem. Or that one last thing to note, the final boss music, pretty much the best music out there. Wish I can play it for you, but you just gotta find it yourself, or play the game yourself, preferably. Even after defeating Nobunaga the second time, he's still able to stand and continue to fight. The Star Division ran out of ideas until Shincho successfully the firing Madara. At first, everybody was against it, but Shincho promised that he can use it without sacrificing anybody. This allows him to meet Nobunaga in, I guess, this alternate dimension. It's not really explained, and have a deep conversation with him. This leads to Nobunaga having a change of heart about life, and finally in his destruction. Nobunaga even asked Shincho if his soul can accompany his body, which Shincho said yes, which is kind of strange. He didn't even think about it first. But anyways, the castle start disintegrating and all the team members save New York. The final part of the chapter ends with the celebration on the boat where you and the girl that you chose go on a date. Pretty much the boat scene is pretty much the same, but the very last part you get a cinematic cutscene with the girl you chose, and it's different with each one that you picked. And that's pretty much the whole game. Whew, finally finished all this game. It took a really lot of time, and hopefully y'all enjoyed it. And that's my review for Sakura Song My Love for the Wii, and also available for PlayStation 2. Now you're probably wondering, why did I spend that much time on this one single game? Well, not only because it's a great game, it also brought back a feeling that I never had for a game for a long time. It's kind of hard to explain this feeling, but I think most of you had this feeling. It's the best way I can describe it is it's kind of feeling for nostalgia, but for right now. I mean, this game brought back a feeling that I felt back with when I played Donkey Kong Country 2, Diddy Kong Quest for the first time, Banjo-Kazooie, man, and Super Mario RPG. I wish I could list all that game, but Sakura Wars has brought back that feeling I haven't felt for a while. Now, don't get me wrong, I played great games like Mario Galaxy and Sonic Colors, but it never brought back that feeling, and it never really want me to make me play that game again, just for the fun of it, not because of the extra replay value. And am I guaranteed that you'll get the same feeling when you play Sakura Wars? No, of course not. I mean, each of you got your own nostalgia-like feeling, like Super Mario Bros. 3 for some of y'all, Battletoads, maybe some of the more modern games, but I don't know, Sakura Wars was just one of those fantastic games, and I really want to share with all you who are watching this video, and I thank you for watching it, especially all 4 parts, which is a long time. Admittedly, I cut some corners, I may have rushed a little bit, and I didn't think I promised the whole 90% spoiler things, but hey, at least if you're interested in the game, you can be surprised at some of the parts that I didn't share. But anyways, I'll be going back to the shorter reviews, and hopefully I can put up a wrestling review in the near future. But anyway, this is me, Bobbert 33, and I catch you guys later.